Hello. Hi all. So next up we have Beau Butler with an intro to flask-security. He's been working somewhat in Python, somewhat in other much more fun things to do. Well, not much more fun, much less fun.
Yeah. It's a mixed bag.
He's working in Python and a startup doing security now, financial security even. But yeah, here's to Beau. Enjoy the talk.
Hi, so we good? We're working? For those of you who don't know me, my name is Beau Butler. I go by the alias Oddie. I was a basic Pascal guy when I was a kid, and then ended up being a C programmer for basically all my 20s. And switched to Python eventually and didn't look back. Became a massive fanboy zealot, loved Python, told everyone about it constantly. Did that for a good few years, and then I jumped sideways into computer hacking for a company called Security Assessment. Did that for a couple of years, and then basically got back out, now doing small business InfoSec software. The nice thing about my job is that it's all Python all the time, apart from the usual bit of JavaScript. And I really like that, and it's one of the biggest reasons I do what I do. And I'm a bit of a dinosaur. I use some old technologies, which has ramifications, which we'll get into shortly. And I believe in simplicity and minimalism and nothing left to take away, because I'm fundamentally a lazy programmer and it's the only way to get things done. So why Flask? Which usually the first question that comes up when you're a Flasker is, why don't you use Django? Everyone uses Django. And my take on it is the learning curve. Some big frameworks, you learn everything in a big lump up front, and then you get to use that knowledge going forward. I don't learn that way. I have a hard time learning that way. It's quite intimidating and my brain doesn't want to engage. So I tend to prefer things where you build it from the bottom up. You start with something very simple, very small, and you get to run it and see it working, and it gives you that psychological boost, which lets you keep going, basically. And Flask delivers this. So there's two halves to this talk. The first half is basically a sort of quasi-tutorial about how to set up Flask security. And the second half is basically answering the question, is it actually secure? So what we've got here is, code example. But what we've got here is basically the entire application, apart from startup code and boilerplate. So you've got a main page, you've got an edit template, which is literally just a text area and a submit button. And you're writing it to an HTML on the file system, and then you're reading from that HTML on the file system. That's it. This is what we're using. Now, the link on the bottom is the actual project itself on GitHub. So if you want, you've got the internet, you can bring it up and sort of go along with me as we go through this. But this is what we're trying to achieve. And basically the idea is we want to secure that edit endpoint. We want to be able to say only editors can access this for get or post. And Flask doesn't do this out of the box, but this is the whole point of Flask security, is to get to this point. This is what it gives you. And we don't want a shared hardwired user password, because that's lame. We want to do this properly. I am a rabid minimalist, but I do have standards. So working backwards from our goal, we need users, we need roles, we need a database to keep the users and roles in. We need login forms, registration forms, and we also need a way for an admin to bind roles to users. And then you run into users will forget their passwords. And then the axe shaving starts. Oh, the axe shaving. Because now your app needs to send email. Hooray! Good times. Because security, right? You can't just reset a password without triggering it back to something someone owns. Stuff like OAuth aside, the primary way for the majority of users to interact with needs login applications is by hammering the living crap out of the forgot password link. We all know this. Luckily, Flask security has you covered. So the things you get, it sends email, just. It has a user DB, small extensible schema. You can easily hook it into your existing databases if you happen to be using SQL Alchemy. Pluggable backends, so you can also use Kiwi, Mongo engine. It comes with all the standard workflows, so logging in, registering, forgot my password, reset my password, confirmation if you're that paranoid and you want to confirm that someone's registering, it's not just a bot or whatever, send them an email. All that stuff comes out of the box. The password crypto is pluggable, so you can use bcrypt, you can use scrypt, you can use whatever the heck you want. It's very easy to integrate. It does come with no password crypto by default, but it does also come with a big red warning box in the well-written documentation which tells you about this, which I did not read, and I looked at my users DB after a couple of days and there was all these passwords in there and I was like, it's a vaguely terrifying thing as someone who professes to be a security dude. Bcrypt, you turn on bcrypt, everything was happy. I haven't tried using the token auth, but I'm told it's very good and it's great for securing REST endpoints and all that sort of stuff that, you know, people do these days. I was going to get to that, but I got sidetracked on the security stuff, more about that shortly. And one thing you don't get is you don't get async email sending out of the box. Flask mail is a very simple wrapper over basically SMTP-lib. And when it sends emails, it does it synchronously. There are recipes for using threading or Celery or whatever you want to do your async email sending. And they're very small, like a few lines of code. And you don't get pretty forms. You get 1990s, I made this in Notepad on Windows, you know, because it's the 90s, like forms, and it's no good. They have no styling whatsoever. The Flaskers decided that the mechanism was their demarcation, and they provided a set template hooks for you to plug in your own templates. Initially, I thought this was super annoying, but having subsequently delved into the world of templates you can buy, I actually realized it's a good decision because all the templates come with nice shiny forms and stuff, and then you can just drop them in as HTML files, and basically everything works. My minimal app, if you're looking at it on GitHub, has a hack to minimize the number of templates you need to deal with. Because if you, like me, you're a back-end kind of person, you don't want to have to screw around with Bootstrap and all that stuff. And I find it reasonably excruciating, so I try and minimize it. So I'll run quickly through getting it set up, and then we'll get to the fun bit. So assuming you have, say, a Linux box, I used Ubuntu Minimal, and you've got a domain name pointing at it, make yourself a shiny new clean virtual env, and you pip those things. flask-security, I use SQL Alchemy, I use bcrypt, and just paste because that can give you a slightly better debug server experience than the one that's built into Flask, which is pretty slow, single-threaded. 2 people hit it, it you know, goes on hold, etc., etc. Make yourself a Hello World app. The real reason for this is you can see the Google site verification doohickey there, which we'll get to in a second. But it's good to just make sure that you can go to your domain name and see your app serving. You have to run the Hello World app as root, of course, you know, sudo -s and work on so all the paths work. But it's just a temporary thing. Just grab one. This slide's more for me than for you guys. I chose, you need an email provider, so the app can send email. I chose Google because it's what I know. But every time I go there and try and do this, they change around where everything is, and it's super annoying. So I basically made this so that I can go back to this 3 weeks from now and remember how I did it. More link admin domains, add your domain, verify domain ownership. The standard method is to use a text field in your DNS zone file. But this method where they give you the link, you put it on your page, and you hit verify is actually a lot faster. And now that you've got that Hello World app, you paste it into the Hello World app, you hit verify, and it comes up straight away. Like, this is practically synchronous. Like, it's actually, I think, in the verify button handler, they actually go log. So you can get that out of the way, done and dusted, real quick. So then you then make an account in Google, hook it up to your domain. You have to log into it in Gmail and change the password, because if you don't, then when the app tries to use those creds to send email later on, you will get an error message. This is just Google being extra careful. But so once you've got your username and password, you take those creds and you plug them into your Flask app configuration in that manner. And if you go on GitHub, you'll see where it all sort of hooks together. So that's the email sending stuff out of the way, the big yak shave. That's basically, it's pretty simple really, I guess. So templates, your forms live in security under your standard Flask templates folder. the flask-security docs are really good here with customizing views. They list what the file names are that you make your templates and how they fit together. Put a link to /login and /register in, say, your navbar or somewhere, so that your users have somewhere to click to actually, log in, right? You've got to have that somewhere. All, pretty straightforward. And then you add the code for user data store. This is, if you want to get started quickly, the boilerplates, the flask-security quick starts are really good. You can pretty much just cut and paste from them. That's what I did. It works quite nicely. And it's, you've got your little schema with your users and your roles, and they fit together, and then you've got 10 minutes? Okay, cool. And they fit together, and then you can see how the flask-security object uses the user data store object, and you can see how the app then uses the flask-security object. And you just have to add some code to call these two APIs, so that you can, that the admin can create a role and bind a role to a user, because this has to be done at runtime because the users have to sign up first. And then finally, chuck Flask behind a web server. I'm a dinosaur, I still use Apache. I wish I didn't, after having a run-in with the difference between Apache 2.2 and 2.4, where they completely changed the security allow deny semantics. That lost me a few hours. That was brutal. Glue available on request. Run the app up, register yourself, run your role to user call, give yourself editor, log in, and then you should be able to, provided you've got the roles accepted there, you should be able to edit stuff, get to that link, and other people should not. And then you're done. You've set up Flask security. Pretty straightforward. So, is it secure? This is the fun bit. It does say there's two ways really to figure out if something's secure: white box testing and black box testing. White box testing, you go through the code, you look through all the code, you try and think how the code works and blah blah blah, which is a good thing to do as a programmer, but it's also really boring. The other way is black box testing. Black box testing is a heck of a lot more fun, because basically what you do is pay megabucks for pen testing. Except if you don't have lots of money, like I don't have lots of money, what do? You make a minimal Flask app, you put it up on the interwebs. You know lots of hackers. Many of my drinking buddies work in the industry still from my time there. So you go, hey guys, pwn my app, please. Like, here it is, please pwn it, please, please. And there was a large round of indifference, and basically nothing happened. Because hackers are just as lazy as programmers. So you gotta motivate these people, right? You gotta incentivize the hackers. I mean, if you think sysadmins drink, hackers drink more. Hackers drink heavily. There's a whole bunch of reasons for this, which I'm not going to go into now. I've run out of time. But yeah, hackers drink. So apply beer. Oh, on a side note, this actually worked for Django. Metal Storm, Adam from Insomnia Security, and Anticode, Brett from Insomnia Security, made a thing called Tokumon, which is a hacker capture the flag competition. Pwn VMs, find tokens, report tokens to scoreboard control gaming system. Scoreboard control gaming system says, your team is winning, you win, get beer, hooray. And it worked really well, and the whole scoreboard control gaming system was written by Adam, and it was Django, and there weren't that many rules. And so one of the unspoken sort of tacit rules was, if you pwn the scoreboard system and you hacksaw it to say, my team is the winner, your team is the winner, you win. And this did not happen. 2 years, lots of, an entire pub conference full of people hacking on it, did not get hacked. Good enough for me. So I thought, worked well enough for Django, let's try it with Flask. Incentivize. So, we create a bar tab at KiwiCon. Bragging rights, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't matter a lot to these people. They do this stuff for money, right? They don't want to do it when they go home. So beer. And then basically sit back. I also had some scope rules. Don't mess with the surrounding network because it's not mine. Try and concentrate on the Flask security RBAC mechanisms themselves. No DOSing because DOSing is lame. Hackers hate scope. It defines the things they aren't allowed to touch. Proper hacking is where anything goes because the best bugs are generally found where systems integrate or interconnect. So if you can touch all systems, you have a much better chance of chaining bugs together and actually achieving something. Where something is to get a shell on the box, get admin, mess with other users, blah, blah, blah. In this case, deface the front page. Hopefully by gaining access to the edit box, bypassing the role restriction we just set up in flask-security. So this is where I sat back and watched all the hackers throw themselves at Flask like lemmings, and like nothing much happened, and I was like, yeah, got to feel superior that I'm using Python and not Ruby with its crazy YAML bugs and blah, 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 and oh, bugger. So yeah, this happened. Show of hands. Has anyone experienced that blood runs cold feeling when you see something you've made that's out there in the public and it's been hacked? Nice, awesome. It does actually feel like that. The whole blood runs cold thing. It's adrenaline. It's like, oh god. Now I'm cold and sweaty. Oh, my stuff. My thing. I made it. It was mitigated in my case by two things. One, I hoped something like this would happen because this would be a way crappier talk if it didn't. And the VM it's running on is freshly set up, dedicated just for this, has a rack of freshly taken snapshots, revert early, revert often, with maintenance windows. Helps you sleep at night, not having to worry about OS level rootkits and APT and the like. Then after that, it's like, who done it? Followed by, how did they do it? So token done it. I don't know if any of you, some of you may know Token from places like Lateral Security or any ISP ever, or The Pub, where he drinks and rants heavily. But yes, a good friend of mine totally hacked it. How did he do it? Here's how he did it. So, first of all, he cheated a little bit. Went out of scope a little bit, but we'll put that aside for a second. He basically used literally the oldest trick in the book. Old boy Toki happens to have a box in the same rack as where my box is. And it's on the same LAN. For historical reasons, if any of you know who Det is, this LAN is fairly Wild West and tumbleweedy. You can see where this is going. So he can up redirect. He up redirected my box's connection to the internet's. And set up an intercepting proxy called SSL split, which does slightly evil things with certificates, man-in-the-middle SSL connections. Then he goes to the website, goes to my app, my flask-security app, once he's got this all set up, does the forgot password dance, punching in my account, triggering an email to me. If I'd been watching my email at the time, I might have seen, hey, you forgot your password, click here to reset it. But I'm not really, I try and actively avoid email. I'm not a big fan of it anyway, and sure as hell don't have pop-up notifiers or anything like that. So I didn't notice. So basically, that email going out to Google, on the way to Google, he intercepts it, gets the reset token URL link out of it, and then clicks on it, basically. Up comes my flask-security app, click here to reset your password. Happily resets my password, logs in as me, goes to the edit box, lol butts. So that's actually, in my opinion, some pretty good hacking. Putting things together. What do we learn from it? This is good. He did have some advantages that maybe J random guy on the net didn't have, and he used them. The network stuff was a little out of scope, so not the big prize, but he gets the second prize. This is how it tends to go in the commercial world with scope as well. Shared hosting is bad. Shared network can also be bad. Ask what your hosting LAN provider does to segment your stuff. Can you be ARPed if someone rents a box next to yours? This happens. This happens a lot out there in the real world. Second thing, Python's SMTP lib flask-security uses flask-mail, which uses SMTP lib. It doesn't check certs by default. It just doesn't care. There's not even, I don't think, code to do it. In 2.x, which I'm still on, which is where the dinosaur thing comes in. Apparently Python 3.4 does have it, but it's off by default, and there's much debate going on right now about migrating to forcing it on. But that would break a lot of things, and if a Python update broke your B2B app's ability to send email, you would naturally blame Python. So the Python guys don't want that to happen. But also, this is a risk, right? Had happened to me. And I'm also not sure about Google checking the client cert. I need to look into that more. Ran out of time a little bit, but usually you can the man in the middle, right? You can usually try and get a solution from both ends. There was some stuff about the reset tokens being a bit, not quite as obfuscating, as entropy-y as they could be. Usernames are embedded in them, but there didn't seem to be that much risk associated with that stuff. And lots of people like Armin, lots of hackers regard him very highly as being a secure dude who codes good and securely. And they say things like, I'm not trying to break, I'm over trying to break, it's dangerous on my lunch break. I'm done with this, screw this. So that's a good thing in favor of Flask. So stats, I pulled these stats from the Apache Access log. I was hoping to get more awesome stats from all the PCAPs and sniffs that I had running surrounding this box. Steal all their secrets and what have you. But I didn't quite manage to get that far. But this is looking at the logs, and that's also the most worstest stock photo I could find. So a bunch of stack 2 days, 26,000 gets, 5,000 posts. Bunch of people tried various path reversal attacks, with the .. get me there. It didn't work. Lots of token enumerating, also didn't work. Some big Durbuster style, which is where you've got a list of common path names and common files, and they just chuck them at the app, like huge numbers of common stuff. Didn't work. 149 unique IPs, 22 signed up users, not including myself. At least one Tor user, because there are a bunch of people on Comcast and stuff like that, like hammering on this. And someone hacking from their iPhone 4, really weird. He's like masochistic, like, hackers are crazy. Watch out for them. But ultimately, a TLDR is a bunch of people had to go, pounded on it here and there for a couple of days. And apart from Uncle Token's dodgy ARP mail interception technique, the main prize for breaking the RBAC via the rest of the flask-security attack surface is still unclaimed. The site is still up, pwnoddy.com, today, now, and I encourage you all to have a go. People who successfully hack things tend to get hired real quick, and the pay is good. Flask-security has withstood all this ultimately successfully, and that's good enough for me. Questions?
So are there any questions? Say yes.
Tough crowd.
So the actual hack was just the box on the same network pretending to be the Google SMTP gateway via the ARP cache poisoning, was it?
Correct.
Yeah. Oh.
Correct. Yeah,
Yep.
that's how he did it.
Yep. Cool. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yep.
You said SMTP lab in PY34. There's some discussion about whether to turn on certificate checking.
Yeah, whether to force it on by default.
What's the logic for not forcing it on by default?
It would break people using self-signed certs, as I understand it. I was just reading this last night. It would break people using self-signed certs, and it would also break potentially people who hadn't set up their enterprise CAs properly. There's a lot of scope for certs out there that are munted that the devs who are using the Python stuff can't do anything about as well. So if they force it on by default, and especially if they mandate it on and these devs can't turn it off, then their stuff's broken and they can't fix it, which is kind of potentially a problem for a lot of people. And they don't want the fallout, the PR fallout, to crap all over Python, basically. Like, apt-get upgraded Python and now everything's broken. Python, what you do, kind of thing, I guess.
Yep. And I guess the other option is to use some sort of mail relay on your, a postfix on your box.
Yeah, like a better library. So that was, jokes on me. I just sort of punched the creds in and was like, woohoo, SSL, I'm all right, and just proceeded to not care about it after that. So, lesson learnt, right? They can get you from anywhere.
And anyone else with questions? All right. Well, we'll finish a bit early. Afternoon tea might not be served up, but it's out there in the corridor when it does get set up. This was Beau Butler with Intro to Flask Security. After the break, we have